You know, you can only do meth so long. It's pretty awful. And I only did weed in the beginning, and then, you know, you're at the dealers and somebody shows you something. I thought it was Coke, and well, you know, it was meth. You know, I'm going to say my drinking and using lasted a total of maybe 5 years of my life. And, you know, it's just such a hard thing on my soul. Like, I definitely would get to places that was so dark.
And my guest is Michele Garcia, a graduate of the Master's Program of Spiritual Psychology at USM Santa Monica. She's also done training in breathwork, interventions, case management, founded 3 nonprofits, Active Recovery Solutions, Cielo Sober Living, and Cielo Spiritual Retreat. Michelle's an incredibly passionate person, and I was able to meet her at the Emergence 2024 conference, where I experienced something I had never done. A sound bath meditation. It was a pretty great experience, and Michele and I hit it off. She's just a really wonderful person, and I'm excited to have her share her knowledge and spiritual and sobriety journey. Our conversation, you'll learn things about connecting with other people, connecting with yourself, and maybe even if you're on that spiritual pathway, how you can connect with your higher power. As always, thanks for tuning in to Knocking Doors Down. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, leave a thumb up and a comment in the video. And hey, please share with someone that you know will get value out of it. And don't forget, Knocking Doors Down is also on Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can leave a rating and a review and share the podcast with someone just the same. All right, here's my guest, Michele Garcia. Michele Garcia, thank you so much for joining me on Knocking Doors Down.
My pleasure.
The intro people heard, but our backstory, we met at TJ Woodward's Emergence Conference, and, you know, you had an offering that I sat in on, and I'm going to want to discuss that here in a bit, but 3 things you're grateful for today. It's how I start my day, so it's how I start my conversations.
Love it. So definitely I am grateful for my relationship with God. Today actually happens to be the Jewish New Year. So happy New Year to those and anybody who celebrates the beginning of anything new, and an opportunity to do some atonement yesterday, which is part of it. But I'm really more spiritual than anything else, and gratitude, living gratitude for my health. One of the ways I did that today was take time to go to the mineral waters. And for the community that I've created with the Sober Living that I own and such, everybody just getting to support each other the way we do, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and it's wonderful when we get these opportunities. Ironically, I was having a conversation with someone today before we got on about looking towards the opportunities that are coming. And we don't always see it, you know, when we're in the midst of our addiction. And, you know, I'd like to kind of ask, you know, what was little Michele like? Kind of what was the picture? Where did substances come into play? And you know, really what, I hate the term rock bottom, but it makes the most sense visually, you know?
Oh, I know. I get a visual on that one. You know, little Michele, actually, I did grow up in a loving, nurturing family. You know, it's just that, there was some influential learnings that like alcohol could be bad with what I saw. My dad, periodic alcoholic and such, but I had sworn off drinking for that reason. And the funny thing about alcoholism is like we forget, and I conveniently forgot when it was prom time. So it was prom, and I set up this amazing party, and I had a bartender, and then I had my first drink, and it was a strawberry margarita, and we were at the Bonaventure after party after the downtown LA, and I remember to this day, I drank the first drink and thought, oh, you know, I don't feel anything yet. And I knew that drinking was about an effect, like I was going for the effect. I mean, I see it in hindsight now that it all happened so fast. And, you know, as you learn more about alcoholism later, you realize that that's like how we roll. Like not everybody thinks about, I don't feel something yet. Like, but a second drink got me blacked out. So I was literally like, don't even remember my prom. What a waste. And honestly, like I was on the floor at my family's. I woke up in my beautiful prom dress I didn't get to enjoy. And it was like nobody said anything about it. It was kind of like the unspoken shame, right? So
Mm.
I was actually scared sober for a bit, but then drank again when I got a waitressing job years later, and they give you a free drink. And I like once again, I was like, oh, a free shift drink, might as well. And then I had to have a second one because I didn't feel it. Like, why would you have one? It doesn't even feel it yet. And then always like I would swear off like doing drugs, and then that just doesn't work once alcohol kind of gets in me. And that's the problem with meth, is it's just really messy,
Yeah.
but it definitely helped not black out. But then there was other problems, obviously. And I'm gonna say my drinking and using lasted a total of maybe 5 years of my life, right?
Mm.
So I stopped when 1991 when I just, you can only do meth so long. It's pretty awful. And I only did weed in the beginning, and then you're at the dealers and somebody shows you something. I thought it was coke, and well, it was meth. And it's just such a hard thing on my soul. Like I definitely would get to places that was so dark, and I knew I wanted to stop. It wasn't fun anymore. And I ironically called my uncle to talk about it one day in Venice Beach. And I'll never forget, he came with his partner and swooped me up and told me, come live with us now. My roommate had stole my ring, and I was like, oh, unmanageability.
Right.
And then it was amazing, you guys, because like, it's just a God shot. Because see, my uncle sold weed to my parents. So he's the last person in the world I thought was sober. And I one day just said, because I was restless, irritable, discontent, I'm feeling so like uncomfortable, and because I was dry and I was just working in their store. And he was like, oh, he's like, I'm like, how are you so happy? He was so happy. And I was like, I'm sober. I go to these meetings of AA. Oh, you know what? As a matter of fact, and I'm like, you're sober? What's that? And he goes, go upstairs, literally upstairs from the store that he owned. There was an AA meeting hall in West Hollywood, the West Hollywood Drug and Alcohol Center in Santa Monica Boulevard. So I'm like, okay, like he's just letting me go, leave work to go up there. So I go above, the pizza parlors next door above it. And I get introduced to my first West Hollywood Drug and Alcohol meeting. And there was a lot of people that did meth in the AA meetings at that time in West Hollywood, which was nice for me because I couldn't like think about like how it doesn't apply, because there was too many similarities, and it was pretty clear to me. They talked about there was a spiritual malady, and that a mental obsession would take over, and they would think about things until they did it, and then once it hit physically, they couldn't stop, and then they would do things that hurt their spirit. And that was all I needed to understand that I may find what I need here. It just really hit home. And I, I'm thankful to God to this day that like I had an uncle that he was a hairdresser. You could just tell him anything, and I just unfolded to tell him like what's really going on. Because certainly, my parents had just divorced. They were not available. My brother was off doing his thing. And I'm the first one in my family that got sober, like in terms of my uncle, and then I got my brother sober. And then I pretty much have lived sober I'm 56 now, and I must have been in my early 20s. I've been sober most of my life. I have had to recommit, but my stint with relapse was not hard drugs, but I definitely hated it, because there is no life better than the freedom I get when I'm living in sobriety. There is absolute freedom. I've done so many things with my life because of my recovery. And the minute I notice that I get rest on my laurels, or I think like, I don't need to go to a meeting, or I don't need a mentor, the best thing I could do actually is to sponsor people. That keeps me in the work. And I like notice the blessings are happening all around me. Oh my gosh. And I've recreated my life so many times. Like I've done so many different careers. That's not as normal for the average person. Like I feel like it's because of my relationship with God that I can reinvent my life. And every time I'm like, okay, what else can I do with my life? I have sponsors that would challenge me. Well, what else can Michele do? And I'm like, all things possible.
And I'm glad you shared something there really important. And and I don't know if it's just around the area where I live. I'm in Central California. It's very rural, but I've helped with some people in recovery where they're like, well, I can't go to that meeting. Well, why not? Well, they say because I used, meth is pretty popular around here, or fentanyl or whatever it was, that I can't go to that meeting. And that's a horrible rejection for anybody that's just looking for community and help. I mean, what a blessing that you have.
I couldn't agree more. I just got back from Hawaii, and there's a huge meth problem there. And all the meetings, they do not pay attention to, our third tradition, which is singleness of purpose. And I honor and respect that 1000%. But I don't really care because the people in Hawaii need more help. And the fact that AA has not been like single purpose, strict rule thing, like they're just like, just unfold. It's cool. Like the love is so massive, and thank God, because it takes a teamwork. I mean, it's great that there are other 12-step programs. I'm super grateful I came to AA just because it's it's the mother program, and it's really strong, and it's global. It's the world's largest movement and the spiritual movement in the world. And low key, like you can go anywhere and be a part of and get connected. And that's a blessing. But, I think if you talk about how it made you feel, what happened for you, and you identify with the similarities and don't like look for the differences, I'm just lucky I listened enough to go, oh, wow, threefold disease, like it did affect my mind, my body, and my soul. Like if you get that loneliness, it doesn't matter what drugs or whatever, and also the big book does talk about sedatives. Bill drank and he did sedatives and he did drugs too. So it is a part of the story of the founder, and it's in the book. So, it's not to just harp on talking about what it was like anyway. It's just for a minute to talk about, I feel like it's important just to talk about the feelings and be able to understand that brokenness. From that brokenness, we can become whole, perfect, and complete and feel in our divine love again without having to self-medicate anymore. Yeah. So, I mean, that said, I honor the traditions, but I'm so open because I've done it all. And I just want people to get better. Yeah. And I would never tell anyone hey, don't, when you go to a meeting, respect the traditions of the meeting. So my sponsor taught me, if I'm in an NA meeting, I don't need to say I'm an alcoholic. I'm in an NA meeting, identify as an addict. If I'm in an alcoholic meeting, I don't need to say I'm an alcoholic and an addict. It's like saying you're a dog, you're a German shepherd. Just own it. I'm an alcoholic. You're there for that. And just say so and honor the traditions the best you can. And once you've done the work, you can stay within the parameters without having to offend the traditions, because the traditions are there to help keep a singleness of purpose. And I honor that. But it's just not everybody knows that right away. So I think it helps. And I've had to teach a lot of my clients, you don't need to say both. You can just, don't worry. Being a drug addict covers alcohol. You've covered it all by saying that. You don't need to do that. And then the same thing for the other program. If you say you're an drug addict, if you say you're an addict, that covers alcohol because alcohol is a drug, right?
Yeah. Knocking Doors Down by Carlos Vieira. Now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more.
The We're Out of Time podcast with Richard Taite, musician and social media influencer Andrea Russett.
How long you got?
As of today, 2 weeks.
Model and Instagram sensation Lacey K. Summers.
You've never done a drug or a drink, have you?
No.
The star of Netflix Tall Girl Ava Michelle.
The next morning, I found him and
You found him?
I did find him.
The We're Out of Time podcast with the man who revolutionized addiction treatment, Richard Taite. Subscribe now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. We'reOutOfTime.com, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
I think it allows for the greater uncovering of whatever it is. I know that there's Luckily, I've been pretty well embraced because most of them, men's meetings. I have done a few of the stag ones as well, but even in those, in which I've shared about some of the issues around sexuality, having gone through sexual abuse in my childhood and putting that out there, there was an appreciation for that because
Oh gosh, yeah, I love it.
because there's much like with anything, it's like bad things happen, and especially around people of sexual abuse, it's like either you go completely away from it or go completely into it, and that was
Thank you. Thank you for being transparent, because you're right. There's a whole nonprofit out here in the desert called Boys Cry Too. My friend's a therapist and her husband founded it, and they do huge conventions for that. And it's because a lot of men have a harder time having a voice about their being sexually, violated at a young age, which is, something we need to heal from. Sometimes it's just getting an opportunity to feel safe enough to have a voice about it. And I'm thankful for, these kinds of groups and people like yourself that have done the work enough to be able to be transparent, so someone can say, me too, or come up to you after the meeting and have the conversation they need to do the inner work around it, because that's vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And the person that gave me that courage was my dad, who endured sexual abuse from men and women. And, to really put that out. And I know, he carried a lot of bravado around it that, a woman. And so, but all these things ate him up for so long. And eventually, methamphetamines were, his main drug of choice there. And, and I think in being able to share that too, and much like you have, we can take a look at our family lineage of addiction as well, and give the validity that deserves. My brother, Normie, me not. I look more like my mom's dad, and I'll tell you what, Michele, I could definitely drink like him when I was in my active alcoholism.
Yeah.
So, these things, I think the more that we give a space for people to know that they're loved, that they're past, that they're not going to be judged, that they're going to be embraced, and let alone their courage to share might help that other person do the same.
Absolutely.
Because
we're never alone with that.
I don't know about you. I didn't get better till I started talking about all this stuff.
It's beautiful. I have learned that if we don't talk about it, so the men's pressure that you have, because it's a woman, you had to like it. Like, that's not so. Like, not if you didn't consent. If it's not a mutual consent, it's not okay. And plus, if you're not even of age to be approached in that way, and then if you don't deal with it, it turns into rage, and we don't want to be, and then suppressing rage again on top of that. Eventually, it's just so volatile. And it's just the hurt ultimately down. Ultimately it's just the hurt that needs to heal. So I'm just super aware of that. I do a lot of compassionate self-forgiveness work as a spiritual psychologist. And some of that, to me, it's the forgiveness with the self and then others is the most empowering healing work we do. Yeah.
When did the light bulb come on to be like, I'm gonna go into the master's program of
like 40s. Psychology. I was in my 40s. I'm 56 right now. So I was in my 40s. I was in Malibu. I was working as a director of business development for a treatment center. And believe it or not, a client at the treatment center was a lawyer who was in this program, but he had to take it over because he wasn't sober when he first took it. So he was going for the orientation, and he invited me because I helped him get, he was close to me, and he wanted me to go. And so I went, and I was already considering becoming a therapist, maybe family marriage therapist was kind of the go-to for everybody, right, at that time. But this was far more attractive to me in that when I went and I saw that it started with meditation, every modality starts with grounding your client and centering them in their loving and having them invoke their inner counselor and telling them they have all the answers within. I was like, that's so what we learned in 12-step program. Like, that's so spot on. Like, I'm not a good sponsor, a good guide, a good therapist allows you to find your truth, doesn't rob you of your journey by telling you what it ought to, or their perception. Somehow, it's more keyed in. Somehow it's more evolved for them to know. No, that's not at all the way I see highest good coming out of any scenario, like you being able to find and explore what that looks like for you, or what you might like to explore and what feels good. That's how we keep it too. Like, it's like, you ever have the sponsor, like, go read this. It's like, oh, seemingly unrelated, but like you get your answer somehow. And it's not someone told you what. I don't know about you, but I don't do good with people telling me what.
Oh, hell no.
Everybody give me an answer. And then I'm hooked on paying for that answer all the time. No, the answers are here, right here within us all, deep down within every, man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea. The big book speaks to that. It may be obscured with, palm, calamity, worship of things, but like it is there. And like when we could remove all that other stuff, and we can get down deep in within and kind of get quiet enough to, and calm enough and grounded and centered, and then like it just sort of flows out, and next thing you know, you're getting a new awareness and a new thing to try at least, like, and that's where new experiences, and of new experiences, new awarenesses, and of those new awareness, we're inspired in new ways, and oh my gosh, I want to create this in the world now, or maybe I want to be a part of that, or I want to try something new, and that's growth. Yeah. And if you don't have to be bored. Like it is, and getting sober is the funnest thing you could do, because spirit is awake now. And once it's awake, you are not going to want it to go sleep. It's boring. So we do things to keep it awake, like go to immersion conferences and do inner work.
well, and I'm so glad you said it. I say that I've got a couple sayings on here. One of mine that I've actually begun trademarking is "No outside solutions to inside problems."
Hey.
And part of the the thing is, I used to explore and experiment with chemicals, and what that result was, now I explore in my sobriety. And one of those explorations was, and how we met and really started conversation was, you're doing a sound bath? I've never done one. Now, me 10 years ago was, be like, hippy dippy do, horse share something. But now I'm like, this sounds really exciting. And I had such a wonderful experience with you and the other folks in the room.
It's so intimate, isn't it? It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing is really, if anything, is that encouragement of, as you said, everything within the answers. But it's exciting because you get to explore. I explore life, Michele. There's no risk of handcuffs again. There's no,
we don't want you behind doors. We need you knocking on doors.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want you behind bars. No way.
So
how much good to do?
How did you start to transition and explore these other things like sound bath?
Sound bath. Okay, so I actually also, when I was working in treatment, I founded a treatment center for my final for that program I told you. I ended up going to. So everybody had a final, and mine was to co-create with Spirit my heartfelt dream of. Everyone did different things, and mine was a holistic women's treatment center, 6-bed residential, and get it licensed. Paperwork and all. That wasn't the funnest part, but I did it, and it was a very good accomplishment because it was outside the scope of my comfort zone, and it was outside the scope of the things that are easier and more like to create, like, and manifest, and like, bring people together, and like pick people to create an amazing program. That was easy. That was super, super easy. But the harder part was like the paperwork and getting the state, to come and inspect it and being on point to pass, but once you do it and you realize the details that are involved, like I got to license other people's centers for, consulting. And that was super exciting because, I got to kind of pass the torch for other people, to get to do it. And, what I was going to say, the way that, you asked me how did I get inspired to do God? Okay, so because everybody's favorite thing was sound healing when I worked in Malibu, basically, like everyone was always raving about it through the week, and they would only come so often. So I put that in my program, and then my one of my best friends co-facilitated with her boyfriend, and they loved it. And what? Actually, also, I've had huge spiritual experiences getting off meds and deep into meditation experiences that released me from so much, and the growth that came out of it is, I can't even begin. I have stories I could tell you, but it would probably take too long. It is life changing for me, basically. And so it just it just seems, that's why, like, when it came to a therapy modality and it started and ends with meditation, I was like, yes, but so I found that people being able to follow an instrument makes it just easier for them to actually have a meditative experience, right?
Yeah.
Because you have something to follow, and it's pretty, and it's, and I found out later that it's like super amazing what it actually does do. Like, you can clear cellular trauma with gongs, and you can align your energy solar plexus with crystal bowls, and you can really bring soothing calmness with the ocean drums. And I have a whole symphony. I'm actually doing one at my center tonight.
Oh, wow.
And I invited people. I was at the Mineral Waters to come, and they're coming, and it's so blessed. Like, I don't charge for that aspect of what I do. I just invite people because it's a purity in my heart, and it saved my life. And so I integrated it. Like, I started getting one instrument, and then I got another instrument, and then you just, oh my gosh, you get so into it. Like, it's like my hobby now. It's like, oh, what other new instrument? A handpan. I've got the chimes. I've got the wind things. I've got, it's just fun. That's, that I do for fun and free, like we do AA. And I get to take it to places, and sometimes they'll give me a little money for like bringing it to a whole nother state or, a whole nother town, and setting up at like a festival or like somebody's wedding shower, this or that. Like, it's a really gift. It's a big gift to me to like with you, and just knowing it was your first experience and being able to hold this space with you. And I do a process group after mine because I think as a therapist, it's really important. And setting of intentions, because intention setting can be really empowering, and really give you a sense of direction. It's ultimately it's in God's hands, but we can put it out there, right? And that's part of what prayer is. Prayer is about talking with God for me, and conversation is about listening. And listening is in the meditation. So now, and you see, baby, or you feel, or you hear through another person what you're asking about, right? Like, we're asking about something as we're evolving in our spiritual curriculum.
Yeah, that's what I found really interesting about it, having had my own personal experience. But there was a room of, I think there was about 10 of us in there with you, and it did really set the energy. Like, I felt in a very relaxed place. My energy was really high just because of the collective of people there that I was really enjoying, because it was so positive, but it did allow this very busy mind to slow down. And, I noticed for me, it was almost the, not the elimination of thought, but I was very conscious of my breathing. And I noticed that as a person that tends to run tense, I got really relaxed. And when we came to speaking about our intentions afterwards, it was so fascinating to hear how, even in this collective, that we're all hearing what you're putting out, but it all did something so different for everybody, and that was really, really fascinating. Like, I got so much out.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I didn't know you'd have that. That's beautiful to hear. It's one of my favorite parts, because I love getting feedback and people being open, like that one woman crying, like,
I'm sorry, 1 second.
It's okay. Yeah. Just being able to open up and like have their feelings unfold in that way. It's vulnerable, and it's,
I apologize, Michelle.
Okay.
I'm my studio's in a warehouse, and I said to the ladies, please do not set the alarm. They set the alarm. So I was about to get very loud in here. I apologize. But
we're good.
pick it right back up. But I found that what everyone said, and when we were conversing about intentions afterwards, varied so much. And that to me was really fascinating. I don't know if I didn't really have any preconceived notion of what I thought I would get out of it, or anyone else did. I just went in and I was like, I want to be open to this experience.
Best way. I think that's the best way to approach anything,
Yeah.
It's a very sober way. Like, it's a sobriety way to approach things today. And so if I can come with no expectations, I'm going to get the best possible outcome. I'm not going to be disappointed because I don't have I'm just open, honest, willing, right? Magic ingredients.
Yeah. Have you dug into the archives of past Knocking Doors Down podcast episodes? The Knocking Doors Down podcast archive is available to you for free. Check it out. Here's a snippet from when Charlie Sheen was on the podcast.
I think shame and people pleasing are completely interwoven.
Absolutely. I agree 100% because I know I greatly struggled with that. Still do at times.
Right. And what is shame really? It's us writing a story about how someone's going to interpret or judge us with us having no idea what the outcome of the next moment is.
This episode and so many more in the Knocking Doors Down archive. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumb up, leave a comment, and share with somebody else that you know will get value out of the Knocking Doors Down podcast. Well, and how do you think with you throughout life that that's one of the things I very much enjoyed about your company is because you are an honest person, and sometimes people go, honesty isn't good. You were just so welcoming.
Aww.
And how do you feel that as you've grown in that way, it's helped with discernment? Because us that come out of active addiction, discernment is a tough thing.
I appreciate that. Like, I get the chills. First of all, thank you. That's like probably the best compliment someone could give me is that they feel the honesty, because I think that breeds a safe place, and I always want people to feel safe with me, I know I like that feeling, and and I'm always working on deeper levels of my truth, like what, you know what I mean? Like, because that's what 10 Step helps me with, and I have this fun app, like Everything AA, and it helps me, and the gratitude. And so discernment was absolutely something that as a woman who's been in business for herself most of the years of my life, I've had, I don't know, like if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't know this, right? Like I was supposed to be that person that was on Social Security and meds and like stay, but mine were post-drug symptoms, and yet their doctors would try to keep me on it. And, it's every story varies, and some people, my clients, do well with it, and but I've gotten a lot of them off a lot, but, you have to trust your gut. You have to learn to make mistakes in business and in your personal recovery choices. And one of the ways that I exercise that as it relates to meds and meditation, ironically, is when I got to the 11th step and I was seeking God, and I saw Guru, and I got my mantra, and I started meditation. I just knew that I didn't need my med. I talked to my doctor. He's like, no, Miss Garcia, we have a stack this big. You need to be on meds the rest of your life. And I had to trust my gut. I walked away from that going, he's a doctor, he knows. And then I was like, but I feel like at this point, it's only the side effects. And I was really committed to doing the Sanskrit mantra I got from, everybody has their little tools and ways, right? Like even AA has a really great reading for 11th step, but I was like, seeking God, and I just felt it, and I had to trust that. And I did get off the meds, and I did take big steps of like releasing the Social Security money and getting into having a business and making money in the world and not relying on, any income, but like on God's, what's next, right? And then I did have business partners that I trusted that ended up bad, even actually the treatment center thing. But there were red flags that I didn't notice when it happened. And there's ways with contracts in business that I could have protected myself better. And I was so excited just to do it. I had 2% less shares that I didn't care. But now I know, value yourself. Never take a business deal without protecting yourself and having 50% or more. I had a man who owns an amazing center in Malibu. I'll never forget it. His name was Willie of Summit Malibu. And he said, Michele, you need to value yourself more next time. You never take less than 50% or more. And I'm like, okay, I was just so excited somebody wanted to start a treatment center. I never would have thought, but that's why they say watch for excitement, right? In AA, because you have to protect yourself. And that's just, I don't care if it's family, friends. She was a therapy client of mine. I would have never thought that then we stopped doing therapy because we're doing business now. And then she stopped doing the inner work, and then greed. And, I prayed for her, and it was released, and I was able to take her call later with no bitterness at all. And I had already recreated my life, a whole new center in the desert, my own this time, no partners. And I have 3 business experiences, by the way. Once with a clothing store, and, investors that got greedy and takeovers. And I was just like, wow, okay, start again, And so now I have my own, but now I also, years later, have a nonprofit for retreats I do. And I have people on my board I can trust today, because I am manifesting and attracting good. And I am looking at things wiser and slowing it down to notice things and looking for the red flags. And I consult people so they don't have to make the mistakes that I made, because I've had cool teachers along the way that are freely given to me too. And I just talked to a guy once over to Sober Household. I always give free advice from Sober Living, because that's nothing. Licensing a treatment center, I can do. That is a little more work intensive involved, but anything, like, I can help people grow. Like, I feel like it's great if you don't have to learn the hard way, right? So the nice thing about having a sober network of people, there's so many people that have done so many cool things with their life, that if you just put it out there and ask first before just jumping in like I did, I get excited. And, now I don't get as, I get excited, of course, I get excited about life, but I don't make business decisions. You use the word discernment, and that's to discern, is this what's in the highest good? Get it on paper, take a look at it, pros and cons, weigh it out, run it by somebody who's maybe done that before, right? There's so many people I knew that I could have run it by, but I was just running on the moment of it and trusting. And, I was young, remember, and even I went to school later in my life. Like I kept going back to school. I went to school to be a teacher for children, worked with kids. I had a clothing store on Melrose, and I had a fashion line. I just reinvented myself so many cool times and did neat stuff with my life. And I think that I encourage that, I encourage, go see what calls you. In spiritual psychology, first whole semester is, who am I? $55,000 program. Who am I? But it's lots of cool ways of discovering it and modalities of therapy. And then the second whole semester, the premise of it is, what is my purpose? So discovering, once you know who you are, the purpose sort of unfolds, but you just look for it. So in the end, we end up figuring out, let's co-create our heartfelt dream. And we make a spiritual business plan that supports it, which I did add to. And I think that's super important, is get things on paper so you can see it. And there's ways to do that are beautiful and can support you and the people that get on board and are involved with it, because, collectively you want people to feel good and safe about what they're investing their life energy into. Sure. And I've been able to get to do that today without wasting energy foolishly.
Let me ask you this, because of what you mentioned about how the spiritual psychology program started for you. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, I don't know what my purpose is, and I don't know what my purpose is. And my challenge to them is, write out what your values are. That's because you're not going to know what your purpose is without your values. I mean, at our essence, knowing what my values are helps me know me, and then from there I can carry it forward to. I
appreciate that. I really like that you're putting that out there.
What are your thoughts?
In my life sober, I became more humanitarian interested, and I remember when that shift happened, actually, and it just became more and more as I lived sober longer and keep doing the work. More important, all of a sudden, it wasn't about I want to be self-supporting, and it's just, as long as I can be self-supporting and do something creative. Then it became more about how is what I'm doing making an impact on humanity, and what can I do? It just became more purposeful for me. And I think most people who live along the spiritual plane, that starts to become more and more attractive. When that happens for you, maybe different, than for me, but I do believe it will happen for all of us. And I think if everybody had just a little, I know a guy in my class, he was a lawyer. He never stopped being a lawyer. He went to USM because he said at the end, at graduation, or he was went back to a testimony for new people. He said, I attract now different clientele to my work, and I speak a different language. And I love the lawyer I am today because of his experiences completing the master's program at USM. And I was like, that's so bad. You don't, what we learn isn't always like what we end up being or doing, right? But it cultivates the who we can be and in the ways that we go about being it, because that's what's more important. It's not, there's a lot of lawyers that get frowned like, oh, dishonest, but it's how you do what you do that makes you spiritual or not necessarily. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I own a sober living, but it's how I own that sober living and all the different things that I integrate. And I don't need to have conscious recovery, but I love conscious recovery. So I added that to my program, and I paid to have that and be a facilitator. And I show up every week for, my clients, unless I'm traveling, to be there and hold space and do that trauma work. Because it's, we're doing emotional, mental, spiritual, all these different aspects of our spiritual trauma and getting down deep into the work, right? And having conversations that are a little deeper than maybe, just how was lunch. But at the same token, I buy food and they make dinner here. And then those dinner tables, I think, happen to be where some of the best talks happen about their day. And that's why I do it. It's not for it's because they sit and eat together. And I come from a European Latin background, and that's the norm for me, is to sit and eat together. I'm American, but I'm not that American. I don't ever want to be that American that I get into like where it's okay to eat and drive, like I want to be and break bread together and like sit. And I think, that helps. And it also helps nourish you better. Like I feel like you eat and feed your body better. And that's a key thing for recovery for me. One of the parts of my recovery is my physical, obviously, right? It's mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, cognitive. I want to learn. This is a brain. I need to learn something new. So we have where my clients just do a group and they come up with 3 questions and they lead it. Every week's a different leader. And they come, what are you grateful for? That's a big one. If you could travel anywhere, where would you go? Or what do you do? How's your health? And then everyone goes around and answers a question. But it's amazing, that it makes them think. They look up questions that could be different than the last week. And I think it's great. And, then of course a sound bath, and then they have, 12-step meeting. And then they have, what else? Big book study. Yeah. My husband are here. And, they just have fun. And I also throw parties for every holiday there is, because I'm all about celebrating life. Like, you got to have fun sober. I got sober. I was in my early 20s. If I wouldn't have gone to cool, fun stuff to do for sober people at my age, I don't know if I would have stuck around. And then I just started throwing them all the time, because like, I like it. If I like something, I want to spearhead that. And I think, that's what I mean is like, it's about being spiritual is about how you do what you do and what, like, your intention with it. And then I think more interests start to come and you discover what you want to put out there. Like, some people like just working for other people, go home and like be with their family. I mean, I think it's so cool that like, like a rainbow, there's so many colors, and you get to explore which color you want to explore.
Yeah.
Color your world, color your life,
I mean, and that's the joys of it. I was actually conversing with my son after I picked him up from a class today about that I really enjoy that thing. I didn't picture to where I would be now, and I accept, that God has given me all these wonderful lessons to learn along the way, much like yourself. I mean, pain and hardship, it's unavoidable no matter what it is.
Oh,
it
my
comes
gosh.
in all shapes and sizes. Yeah. I mean,
knots in a pillow. Hello. Praying the 3rd step. God, please show me where to go about. I thought this was it.
Yeah.
But you know what?
And
it's cool because new chapter.
And it's the blessing that we don't see, and these things come to fruition. And you were talking about value, and ironically, that was the biggest thing I got out of our conference that I was struggling with, and then literally an opportunity continued to unfold just before the conference, the day before, and now where I'm at, like an amazing opportunity.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and these things have started to come together because I was really focused on the purpose. And that's what this gentleman that I'm doing some additional work for told me. And he goes, I could just tell you're a good spirit. You do these things for the right reason. And then he saw the work that I was putting out, and he's like, pardon the language, he's like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, I'm just me. And he goes, no, you're not a normal guy. And it was like, oh, maybe I'm not. And it changed the way I was thinking. You know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe, taking a look back gave me a moment to go and reflect. All those things, all those hardships, the 10,000 plus hours at the craft that I do and all these things, like, yeah, I earned this. And like for once in my life at 46, Michele, I'm like, yeah, I'm in a good place and I've earned this.
You just reminded me of that whole Michelangelo metaphor, right? Or Michelangelo, oh my gosh, how did you do it? How did you think this up? He goes, no, I don't know. I just kept chipping away at the parts that I didn't want, and the masterpiece just appeared. And you just and sometimes that's also part of it, is just as you let go and release the fears or the doubts or these lack ideals, and really embrace that nowness. And as you're letting go and surrendering to these moments of nowness and being fully present, you're able to be your masterpiece, you that you truly and are.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I
don't recollect that I've ever heard that.
Oh, it's usually like when you do the third step, they talk about it, because it's like we talk about God and your relationship with God. And it's like, I just it's about letting go of the old ideas. Because you really, collectively we're all one, and it's really about connecting to that and being interconnected, and your God conscious meeting mine, and all the different people who we meet, and being able to interconnect to create the magic and the hope, hopefully, because I feel like everybody just needs hope. And that's a big part of what I feel you're putting out, is a lot of hope for people. And that's key. We can't live without it. When we become hopeless, that's just I feel like that's the underlying horribly current that hurts the most for us when we're in our active addiction.
Yeah. I think it keeps people in a state of fear, for lack of being able to land on a different emotion and thought pattern, that it's debilitating.
Totally, yeah.
I've seen it firsthand. I've gone through it myself with struggles with anxiety. It just, debilitating. And it was grounded in fear. And it took me a while to uncover what it was. And I'll tell you, Michele, I'm sure you've had many clients that have said this. It wasn't fear of failure. It was fear of success.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because with fear of failure, it's like, oh yeah, I failed. That's what I expected. But with success, it's like, ooh, and what? And where? And what more? And what do I got to, and I embrace and I enjoy that because I like the challenge, to me.
Love it.
And I don't mean this in a passe or diminishing way. I like the puzzle. Let me solve it. My first AA sponsor, he was like, what'd you love to do as a kid? It was all these things. Like, that's too expensive. Something else. And I'm like, Legos? And he's like, perfect. Got me a gift card. He goes, go start building Legos again.
I love that.
Just that thing, needing to tinker. And it's
so much. That's joy and well-being. That's another part of nurturing. We used to do nurturing projects. I just think it's so cool you have a kid, because just for me,
got two.
Oh, wow. So double. I get so much joy. I actually went to school to be a teacher for kids. I was volunteering in the Boys and Girls Club. And I have two nieces. They're 4 and 2 and gorgeous. And the joy and the God that just brims out of kids is just unexplainably magnetic. And I absolutely love it. And, being a parent, when I watch people, it's like literally the most unselfish love you could learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, and I'm not.
And be with, really. I don't know that you learn. It's just but because you become a parent, and then it's just so giving.
Yeah. No, you understand, and I don't know if it's true or not. You don't know what love is until you have a child. I don't know because I have children, but I do know that love and desire to continue to hopefully be something that as they grow and mature, that maybe, now they think, oh, dad's a jackass or whatever. But I mean,
In hindsight, not so
right.
much later.
We were all teenagers once. I mean, let's be honest, the brain's not fully formed, but, hopefully at some point they'll go, dad was pretty cool. He was pretty switched on,
Oh, I'm sure. You're nothing, no greater gift than you get to be a sober dad. I mean, that's just like really, really awesome. I mean, there's no greater gift. And I honestly loved the opportunity this life has afforded me to be essentially like a foster parent to so many lives along the way. And I don't know that I would have done that if I would have gotten married and had kids. Not that I didn't want to. I mean, like, I totally thought that was just going to happen, but it wasn't in the cards. And as a result, I had a lot of time and energy to give in a different way where, people come in and I get to love on them and love them till they could love themselves. And trust me, I've had to kick people out that were furious at me for catching them with things. And they said I was called every mean name in the book. And can I tell you, I have gotten the most thank you cards of like the most deepest, profound expression of love for doing that for them, because it got them where they needed to be where they are. And like, I could tell you names and names, I don't have name names, but like, I'll never forget, because these are lives that really did transform. And I had to get the hardest kind of love where I'd like to put my foot down and you need to be accountable. This isn't okay. And be mad all you want. But later they love you so much for helping save their life, because, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Right. Like, and I could just say, because like, whatever, I don't know what excuse, but I don't, it's easier sometimes to just say, oh, you know what, it's okay. You know what, it's not okay sometimes, and I have to step up and be the one that nobody likes, but like, that's part of an act of love. Yes. And I think, if there are younger people watching this, please take heed to that, and that sometimes love shows up. You just have to look at the intention. We're talking about intention. Where is the intention? Is this person looking out for my best interest? It'll come up. They may not get it right away, because in the heat of it all, because now where am I going to go? Now everyone's going to be mad. There's consequences, right? And some of those consequences, especially as it relates to using in a center or sneak using, or, or giving someone something they ought not, where you're in a safe place, setting, and you agree not to, can be not fun to take a look at, because you got the blinders on. Now you got to look at what's really it is, and it's not fun. But awareness and getting aware and having people that want to let you get aware with what your truth is only a gift, is only an act of love.
Well, and I think it's a symbol too. I can only imagine what that's like, and being in that position too, it's a symbol of how much you love you and the work that you've done, and
integrity, right?
And put out there, and as well as a loving act in that, hey, I care about you, but I also care about all these other people here that are doing the work, and I'm sorry, there's no place in this if you're going to be that way, and because. Hey,
well put. I like the way you put that, by the way. That's how I had to approach it.
It is. It's very...
God willing, you'll never have to say that to your
Well, because at the end of the day, something goes sideways, that falls on you, and you can't have that. And all the people, you employ, the people you that are trusting you in their care. I mean, that's an incredibly loving thing and tough thing to have to do, that I think people often leave out of the component of love conversation. There is tough decisions in with it. There is discipline that comes in with love. There is the integrity. There's so many factors that come into love that people just leave out. It's not a feeling, it's actions.
Oh yeah. I just had someone tell me recently, nobody likes you. You're just mean. I was like, it's not a popularity contest. So okay if you don't like me. So, but I think, it's all about what's in the highest good. You're right. For the greater good, and just holding the line. Being an example helps for sure. The best example I can be, that helps inspire, motivate. Bringing other amazing people like I'll have them watch your talk show. I'll have them watch things that I know they can get something inspired thought, new idea from. And that supports them in good ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get to random questions and I ask you for the final thoughts, Michele, if you could tell people maybe how they can connect with you, what programs you have available, and we'll make sure to get those links in the podcast description.
Okay. So you can call me. I mean, I do have a toll-free number, but my personal cell is 310-968 0993. And though my center is in the Coachella Valley near Palm Springs, it's a 12-person community for a holistic spiritual sober living experience. Right now, the Riverside County does fund through a HOPE program. Once in your life, this is a new thing. Once in your life, they'll check your Social Security. You get the opportunity. This just happened because of the huge opiate problem in the world and just drug addiction being so rampant. They have an outpatient. They'll send you to treatment for maybe 3 months, and then they will get you on board with a list of sober livings, and I'm on that list, and they'll pay for 6 months of your aftercare program. So that's 3 months, I think, like of treatment, and then 6 months, which is a good substantial time not to worry about making money, or you'll go about getting a job at some point when you're in the sober house, but you may not make it right away. Like you get time to save and to prepare, and they'll even help you with your next step, actually. So that's the first time in history I've heard of that ever even happening. It's $1,100 cash if you don't have it, but again, that includes food, and all this other extra stuff I do for sober living that you may not find in a regular sober living, because essentially a sober living is just make sure it's safe and everybody's not using and drug testing and curfews and that kind of thing.
Structure.
And meetings, you make sure they're going to meetings, but there's more here, obviously. And then, I encourage people to go to school, outpatient, volunteer, all that, anything they can do to support their growth. What was I going to say? The other thing that I do is every 3 months, you are invited, please come.
Okay.
And a guest, or two even. I have a 30% capacity fine dining experience at an organic seasonal restaurant in town that I met the chef that owns this restaurant that brought so much love to his work. He decided he wanted to collaborate with me to throw this dinner and dessert. And I'm going to do a sound healing in the beginning. And then everybody gets a chance to stand up and share their name and what they do real quick, so that we know who is in the room, so they can connect with each other, to connect and see how we can all help each other. And I'll probably close with a little meditation at the end, maybe spirit guides. But it will be great. And then I can't wait to see what he cooks, because his plates of food are just like art pieces, literally. And he gets food from the best places. He really goes all out. So there's that, and that is on Columbus Day at 6 o'clock. And I'm going to be on the news for that on Tuesday, local news channel 3. So that's kind of fun, and it gives the opportunity for me to I'm always on it for the retreats I do. The news stations are super supportive, which has been wonderful. I love that, living in a smaller community. I mean, even when I lived in LA, I got to do some neat stuff, but I've been here 15 years now. So I'm more than happy to bring sound healing to whatever events you might like, or if you own a center, or you have or you want to come to mine for free, you can come and experience it. So yeah, I mean, and then what's the 1-800 number? I don't know. It's 1-888-877-394 8355. So that's the toll-free number. And I have the 310 since Malibu, because everybody knows me. But also you can look up cielosoberliving.com, and Cielo means spirit in the sky. And then I own Active Recovery Solutions for a really long time. And that does, we do interventions, case management, consulting, as we talked about, and the business development, those sorts of stuff that I've done through the years. But then the retreats, which I do every 3 months, is Cielo SF, which means Spiritual Foundation. It's a nonprofit company with the hand of God for the symbol. And anybody can come to that. That's really fun. You don't have to be an addict. It could be just like you want spiritual fit condition. And there's these really neat people that I meet along the way that have something they can offer to it too. So, and I'll do it like at a resort or like one time I've done it twice here with yoga and different healers. And people are receptive, and it's just another way to give back, you know?
Oh, I love that. And it's one of the things that I do encourage is that, normies or people that aren't in sobriety intermingle with us, because you're going to find some really awesome switched on people that are doing life in a different way. And so any of those opportunities, I think that's awesome that you offer it, but I'll make sure the web links are in the podcast description. All right. This is where we just have some fun, Michele. These are random questions. Don't overthink them.
Okay.
So here you go. Do you have a hobby or interest that people would be surprised to learn about that we haven't already discussed?
I mean, I do love hot yoga. That's a bit of a hobby.
Okay.
And also I love cooking.
Oh.
Food, and really exotic recipes. So
how did you get into the hot yoga?
Just came to the desert, and one day I was looking for yoga, and that was what's offered out here a lot. And I just got hooked. I love the whole sweating, and you feel like you detox your whole body. And now I do cold plunges here too. We have the cold plunge and the infrared sauna. It's fun. The cold plunge is a newer thing. It's really whoa, 3 minutes. And ice cold water.
that's a long time. I don't think I've gotten that far. I was about to ask if you're an introvert or extrovert, but I'm going to assume you're an extrovert, because my experience with you were just so quickly welcoming. And people are surprised when I say I'm an introvert. I'm like, yeah, I naturally am, unless you put me up on a stage and I know it's time to not be. So,
right.
Let's see. Do you have any pet peeves? You're very accepting, understanding. There has to be something that just annoys and irks you.
I have this thing where, if I'm talking and giving direction to one of my employees and such, and they cut me off to talk over me, and I'm not finished with my thought, I have to repeat myself a lot of times. That can be challenging, but I think of it as an opportunity to practice patience and tolerance. So
yeah. Is there a book you've read recently, or a TV show or movie that you've enjoyed and you had a big takeaway you could share?
Yeah, I loved Sleeping Beauty.
Oh.
And Angelina Jolie plays the wicked, and the thing is, she puts her to sleep and to never be woke, because she doesn't believe in love. She got heartbroken. But the interesting thing is the kiss of love. It ends up being her kiss, because she believes her to be her mom, it raised her, in fact. And so that pure love, rekindled her, and she was like a phoenix that came up from the ashes, and there was rebirth of it. It was just the most beautiful act of love, and to show that love can transcend everything. Just loved it. I also am super excited to see the Joker, because I love the mental health topic, and I just know that's going to be really colorful.
Oh yeah, the first one was such a fascinating and well done movie, and and same. And I'm a huge Disney fan. I just it was the thing that my mom and I did a lot as a child, and so it always holds a good place. And I think that's the thing that people miss about Sleeping Beauty is oh, see, it's always Prince Charming comes to save. No. It was love within that woke her up.
Oh, so beautiful.
And people miss that. They miss it, and they look at it on a surface level that it's always somebody else is going to come rescue us. That's not what happened in that story.
No, it's way deeper, and it's kind of very shown in the movie. I love the way they did it.
Yeah, me too. And just her seeing her own beauty, and granted, it's a film. We're watching it. They have to illustrate it outwards, but her accepting that, that love, that I am not no, I'm not this thing that you put down and will put down. That is not who I am. So I think people really miss that, oh, she was just come and saved by some man and how past. No. You're missing the point. I'm sorry.
Well, she ends up in the movie, like they really show how it was the love between her and the Angelina Jolie, who plays the wicked one that did the curse in the first place, but ends up loving her. But then the love back it was just so pure and beautiful. It broke the spell. Like that part is just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's all about divine love for me. So like when I do sound baths, when I do spiritual psychology, when I do step work, when I do anything that's about healing, it's all about getting back to your natural state, which is divine love, and really knowing it's always there. Like people may reject us. That doesn't mean there isn't love, or it's just may not be in the right fit or the right time. It has nothing to do with taking, like when we take it personal, it really messes up the lesson that's being made available.
Oh yeah. After my last slip up, I tried to maintain a friendship with someone that I had a relationship with. And the best decision I ever made, and probably for her as well, was made a call like, this is the last conversation we're going to have. This is not a positive thing to have any kind of connection. And there will be no growth. There will be this crutch, all these things that are surrounded in negativity and far from love. And that was the most loving act for myself and for that person I could do, much like you calling out somebody that threatens the things that you built and who you are and all the people that you love. Same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like limitations. Know your limitations. Like this is as far as I can go, and I can't go like over here. So
yeah,
it's not going to serve either person. You can see that, and we can voice that. They say boundaries. We learned at the conference, use limitations.
I like accessibility too. Like, I'm sorry, there's certain parts of my life you're just not going to have accessibility to. Some people you'll get weird weather we're having, and other people,
Yeah, you want to use, you can use, but you just can't use here. Right? I mean, we're not here to tell people what to do. They're not done yet. They're not done. I had someone say, Michele, you know what, I'm going to move. I want to go use. And I actually really, I respected that because it was like, at least he was honest and didn't try to pull some shit. And I was just like, okay, God bless you. And I'm here for you when you need me, but to be honest with yourself is really key.
Well, this is where I give you the floor. Any words of encouragement you would want to end in closing things up?
Well, my aunt used to tell me, she told me this, when I was in high school, and it was follow your heart, learn how to follow your heart. And, as you stay sober, your head and your heart become interconnected and in sync with each other, and just watch for that and allow yourself to make mistakes, pick yourself up and grow from them, because some of my best and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think, asking people so you don't have to fall on your face every time is really wise. And you'll know the truth when you listen to things and sit with it and meditate and does that feel right for me, and then, be with it and then see, and I think, Einstein said it well. He said, I'm not smart. I'm just curious. So be curious, ask questions in life. There's no dumb question at all. I had a teacher tell me that when I went to school to be a teacher for children. And I have found it to be true.
Yeah. It's
just a blessing to learn more and have new experiences.
Absolutely.
And if you know someone that wants to get sober, there's so many wonderful places that can support people today. You don't have to do it alone. Granted, there's AA, it's global. That's so awesome. There's CODA, there's Al-Anon, there's NA, there's OA, there's Gamblers Anonymous. My gosh, there's something for everyone. But there's also, support system. There's, Boys Cry 2, there's all you have to do these days is Google, but also sober homes like mine. There's community. People live here 4 years, some of them just for months, some of them just for years. It just varies on people's needs, and just embrace the resources, because it takes a village. You can't do this thing alone. That's, I think, what I'm getting at. It's a we program, and it's we collectively. When you go travel, make sure you find out where you can go to like connect and go to a meeting. Because I always find it fun, if you're in recovery, to show up at a meeting and hear like in Hawaii, like how they talk and share and express themselves. And like when there's meetings all over Paris, it's like I went to a meeting, you guys, and it was somebody from my home group in Hollywood there at that time. What are the odds?
Right.
I was like, no way. But that's just like God showing us that like our angels are everywhere, and when we show up, we get to share. And I think just like the 9-step promise is like expect the unexpected. That's like you talked about. You just show up with no expectations, and you just expect the unexpected, right? And it's so cool what could come out of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know what this iPodcast is going to be about. I'm just going to show up. Right? So you are just a love, though. Like your energy's so easy to like share with, and I'm super grateful I met you. I mean,
likewise.
And it's just, there were so many great people to connect with at that. I think that conference attracts people who really want to do the inner work and that are there to do it, and we're open to doing it. I mean, people who had never gone to it before. That was my second time. But the people that had never been and were doing it, just watching them so excited about what was unfolding, and they're like, this is not what I expected from a conference. Like those kind of reactions are so wonderful to watch. It just gives me chills. I'm like, yay.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Michele Garcia, my friend, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for doing what you do, knocking doors down.
Thank you. And on that note, remember, no outside solutions to inside problems, and keep knocking doors down.